Volume is the fire in which strength is forged. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And again, one of these topics to where when we have this conversation about size versus strength, okay, size versus strength, it really comes over to one of those chicken or the egg scenarios. And I tend to hold the view that yes, obviously there are cases where people with certain leverages, certain genetics, things like that, depending upon levers and things, also muscle insertions, can get very, very strong without as much size. But we need to understand they are kind of the exception to the rule. Number one. Number two, oftentimes when those people do that, they end up breaking and burning out. They end up breaking and burning out. And case in point, I've watched many of their careers. Right, some of these extremely strong pound for pound guys who have a high level of specificity, none of them are powerlifting or any of that anymore at my age. They're not. They get into their 40s and they're toast. They're done. And the reason is because they didn't really do it the right way. Okay, and they didn't build a structure to their body. They didn't build a structure to their body. And here's what we find. Couple things to remember. Number one, we have the structural end, and number two, we have to think about all the data we have on muscle mass and force production. Okay, and I try to tell this to people: you can bodybuild your way to elite levels of strength. Right? I'm not saying you shouldn't do any heavy lifting, because now you saw me doing some heavy 1 to 3 rep stuff in there. Right? Relatively heavy. For a guy my age and where I'm at and dieting right now, pretty heavy. So, like, see me throwing around a 6 plate per side deadlift and, repping beyond 3 plates on a pause bench, decent stuff. But here's the thing with that. We need to remember. When it comes to a lot of those things, building a support structure matters, and that means soft tissue. Okay, it means soft tissue. Not just talking about just bone. We're not just talking about bone density, because heavy lifting will give you that. I mean, heavy deadlifts and squats will give you crazy bone density by themselves, right? No debate about this. We know this. But we're talking about tendons. We're talking about support muscles. We're talking about all these things that you need to support, to prevent injuries, to support your joints. And where do you get that? You get a lot of that from volume and hypertrophy work, right? We need that training volume for that. All right, and examples. Let's say protecting your elbows on heavy benching. Well, if you really build your tendons up of your elbows, guess what? Right, through a bunch of higher rep extensions and things, they're going to tend to be thicker. You're going to have thicker tendons. They're going to recover better. You're going to have less of these issues. What about your shoulders and shoulder health? Well, same thing. You can build up all the tendons and structures of your shoulder. Right? Not saying bad technique isn't going to catch up with you. But, again, we're building support structure. Okay? And all the connective tissue, the tendons, all those things. All right, but what about the musculature itself? Doesn't the muscle mass offer support? I mean, how often do you see this when you've been told over and over and over by elite strength coaches for a big bench, build your upper back, build your rear delts, build all those things? Okay, that muscle does what? It supports that structure. It also gives you the ability to control the eccentrics better so you can place the bar where you want it, right? Gives you strength on those because of all those support muscles that support that eccentric rep, lets you place it where you want it. But the same thing with protecting the joint. Right? You build all that muscle around the joint, we have more cushioning and support. You have more cushioning and support. It is more stable. Another reason too, I'm doing tons of arm work these days because my arms need it aesthetically, but the same thing for elbow health. Look at the biceps. Not just the triceps, primary mover. Look at biceps, say, for benching. They offer stability. They help stabilize that. So a lot of these opposing muscle groups, when we start getting real heavy, they help stabilize these lifts. They help stabilize joints on the other end. Right? Hamstrings don't grow from squats, but hamstrings will sure help support your knee when you squat. They'll help support it. And it gives you better control of your eccentric reps. Same thing with all your core hamstrings on the other stuff. So how often have you heard plenty of strength coaches tell you, torn hamstrings, right? Torn hamstrings, big issue. But if you train them, this goes away. And I used to have this problem years ago. I used to pull hamstrings over 10 years ago, right? I haven't done it in a while. When I didn't do much hamstring work. I put it on camera before, but then when I started doing good mornings, reverse hypers, I never pulled another hamstring again deadlifting, ever. Ever. But what about your low back? All right, weak hamstrings causes back injuries. Strong hamstrings gives you better control and stability of all that. Less likely to injure your back. Right? Build your hamstrings. So on and so forth. We can go through all these examples. But then the other thing to think about, the muscle mass. All right, muscle raises your strength ceiling. 85 to 90% of your personal strength is going to come from hypertrophy of your muscle tissue. I'm not saying that compares you to another person, but this has been demonstrated in the lab. For you personally, you will see a direct increase in force production in any given muscle based upon how big you get it. It's directly proportionate. Now, that only matters at the level of the joint. It's not going to affect all your multi-joint movement pattern. But a bigger tricep is a stronger tricep. Okay? A bigger quad is a stronger quad for you as a person. Well, how do you get them bigger? By doing training volume. I'm not going to say by doing lightweight. I'm going to say by doing fairly heavy weights for a whole lot of reps. Heavy being relative. Right? I mean, if it's something as your 10 rep max, that's relatively heavy. Right? And if you're pretty big, that's going to be a big weight still. We'll do that for thousands and thousands of reps over time. Right? That volume. So when I say strength is forged in the fires of volume, I'm talking about because of the fact that it builds the support structures of your body, and it builds the muscle tissue, which has also been part of those support structures. It builds muscle tissue, which gives you the base to produce this force, gives you the base to produce this force, where you're less reliant upon just neural drive and technique to try to do it. Okay? Gives you the ability to brute strength your way through things easier. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.